Gashouse gang from KMOX. Hey, look who's here. Matt Pauley's back. Guy's a little banged up, but he's joining us. He's good to go. Kevin Wheeler, Tom Ackerman here in Nashville, where I'll be calling the Belmont Southern Illinois game tonight for ESPN Plus. How we doing, boys?
Well, I mean, safe to say that considering that you guys both said you're sick, I guess I'm doing better than both of you.
Yeah. Yeah, 'tis the season. I don't know, man. I got the third cold I've had and I never get sick, ever. 3 colds smacked me in 3 months. But this one was the worst. I mean, the most minor of the 3. The second one was the worst one, where I had bronchitis. My man, Matt Pauley, has topped me. He's got all kinds of chest issues. So
full-blown pneumonia over here.
God. But you're on the plus side now, though. You're on the upswing.
Yeah.
It's good.
I mean, you're on the Gashouse cake.
Yeah.
You're on the Gashouse cake, so you've made it back.
This
will be a nice test to see how you do for KMOX tonight.
He'll pass.
Yeah, he'll be fine. It's great. We could all tell stories from the road, I'm sure, about our health issues. I did a game one time at Illinois State with David Kaplan, our man from Chicago, and we were late in the second half, and my voice starts going in the middle of doing the game. And I turned to Cap and I said, if this goes to overtime, you are taking over. It's over. I'm done. And I somehow made it through, and I had no voice on the drive home. I called at that time KMOX. It was Maurice Drummond was my backup on morning drive. And I said, you got to do it tomorrow. And he's like, I'm on it. So yeah, it happens, man. It's good to have you back on the show. Good to have Kevin, of course, look at him in our KMOX sports office.
Woo.
And you know what, boys? We got to get well, because here come the Cardinals. They're coming into town. The winter warm-up is next weekend. They will be here. We'll be going on the Caravan. Matt, you're heading out. I'm heading out. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on, a lot of players coming in. I guess the question is, Kevin, is Nolan Arenado going to be part of that party at Ballpark Village and Busch Stadium?
Well, so we're going to assume that the question is based on the fact that he's not going to be traded by then, right? Because obviously if he's traded by then, no. I would bet not. If he's still on the roster, I would bet not, just because of the uncertainty, just because he could be traded during it. He could be traded 2 days later. And again, not any kind of knock on him or anything. I'm pretty sure if I was in that situation and potentially on the way out, I'd probably stay back too, just because of the awkwardness of it all. But if we get resolution, if we hear from him, his people, or the Cardinals that, hey, look, nothing's materialized, Nolan's coming with us to spring training, well, then maybe he will be there in that scenario. But I mean, outside of that, I can't see it making any sense for him to be there.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he was there last year. I know Paul Goldschmidt wasn't able to make it last year, but I don't think Nolan was there last year. So even some of these guys don't always make it to.
No, Yachty didn't always make it.
I'm looking at the autograph ticket list right now while you were saying that, just to see, and he is not on it. So, I mean, there are some pretty big names on there. I mean, Tony La Russa is a $50 autograph on Monday. Ryan Helsley's on it. He's $50. Brendan Donovan's $75. All right.
There we go.
Let's go. Let's go, Donnie. Lars Nootbaar's $75 autograph.
Matt Pauley's is $104.
Mason Wynn sold out.
That was my temperature 2 days ago.
Yes, you got it.
If you waited on Mason Wynn and Jordan Walker, they're sold out. 75 apiece, but they are sold out of autographs tickets for those two.
So that's interesting, because one of the things I was kicking around with DGS off the air, but and we can always we've touched on this a little bit to a degree, but if you were to say to Cardinals fans today, and a lot of other teams will do this, they do it part of their promotional materials, who's your Cardinal?
Yeah,
there's really only kind of one answer, right? Or two, maybe. It's probably mostly Sonny Gray and Mason Wynn. Those are the big answers you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Wilson Contreras for me. I think that he is.
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah, I think he's going to emerge as the leader of the team. But guys, and only you guys would know this, that we have a jersey hanging on the back of our door in the sports office. And all Kevin has to do is turn the camera. So it's Goldschmidt. Now, obviously, we're going to replace that. We love Goldie, but we got to replace that. But Goldie was the MVP, and Goldie got the prestigious door hang. So who's going to be the next jersey up on the door, I think, is a great question for the KMOX Sports Office. I was thinking Win.
Yeah, I think it's the number one.
Yeah.
You know, I think Win.
Is he going to be here for a while? That's the one guarantee, right? He ain't going anywhere for a long time.
But it is a good question, Kevin, and it does, you know, it is a big part of what the Cardinals are trying to do is who's going to draw for us.
Yeah.
Sonny Gray. Somebody asked about Sonny Gray. He's not on this list. That doesn't mean he's, you know, not going to be a Cardinal or anything, but some guys just aren't able to make it in for that. He is not on this list currently, but they are adding people. You know, they just added a few people to the list. So Ray Langford's on there. By the way, Contreras tickets are still available at $75.
There you go.
So,
I think, by the way, if anybody wants to chime in on that question on our comments,
who's your Cardinal?
Whether you're watching on YouTube or on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, we can pop them up here on the screen as we're going. I mean, who's the one you want to pay to see? Who's the one, even if it's not just I'll buy tickets to see them, but who's the person you tune in for? Because I think that's a big part of what building this is. It's the Cardinals establishing the next generation of ticket sellers, of jersey sellers, and because those are the things that measure popularity, right? I mean, these are the things that measure, and performance has a lot to do with it. So now with Wynn having had the big successful rookie year, he's a fun, entertaining style of play, right? He's athletic, he's fast, he does a lot of good things. He's a natural answer. And obviously, Sonny being a big-time starter is a natural answer, right? Starting pitchers are draws. So I'm really curious to see where people are on that, or if they haven't picked yet because they're still kind of letting it play out.
I think for kids, it's definitely Mason Wynn. I hear there's something about him that definitely kids are drawn to, and I think the guys that we have mentioned with Gray and Contreras certainly are there as well. But if you've got to make somebody the face of this franchise right now, I would hand it to Mason Wynn.
They added Trevor Rosenthal to the list also. He's going to be signing autographs. And then Helsley, Donovan, Walker are going to have Q&A sessions. I just like mentioning this so you know who they're promoting, who they're
that tells you something about the trade things with Helsley.
Yeah, I mean, it's over. You know?
At least for now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like somebody could offer him, Jackson Holiday.
There you go. Hey, done deal. Sorry. Nice knowing you.
Hells, we'll see you later. Brendan Donovan, Jordan Walker, they're going to do the Q&As. And then Alec Burleson, Mason Wynn, and Pedro Pajes are doing a kids-only player press conference, Matt.
That's great.
I think that's pretty cool. So there's a lot of stuff going on over the weekend. But, back to Arenado, it's been slow. But, Matt, I'm going to throw this back to you because we've talked about it a lot. Arenado is still your billboard player. I mean, he is going to go to Cooperstown. He's a 10-time Gold Glover. He's a phenomenal talent, generational talent, I would say, at third base. But his skills have slipped. I wonder how you read this market. I mean, is it a referendum on his offensive skills slipping? Is it about the money that he makes? Is it about the number of teams that have need? Is it what the Cardinals want? How do you read the market being so slow and really only one team left, it looks like, the Red Sox?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. And what's the most important part probably is the production that you're going to get out of him. Because if you knew for sure that he was going to be a top flight offensive player, there's going to be a lot of teams that would be very much interested in having him. But because his offensive skills have dwindled, Kevin, you've talked a lot about the bat speed and the bat length and things like that. All those things are true. And I've got all the confidence in the world that he is spending time this offseason trying to fix those things.
Without
and perhaps he does. But until we see it in play, we won't know for sure. And that's why part of me just keeps wondering, there's clearly teams that he would be very interested in going to. Is he almost betting on himself where he feels like if he can start out strong at the beginning of the season, maybe some of those opportunities of teams that he really wants to go to, that those are going to open back up based off his play?
I think that's a great point. I mean, that from his perspective, if he's not getting exactly what he wants now, his value really only goes up. It's probably as low as it's going to get at this point, just because coming off of 2 down years where he's basically been a league average hitter. But if he can fix the swing a little bit, right? If he can make the adjustment, mostly I think that you have to shorten it up. It's really hard to add bat speed. Like, that's a lot of work. It's not impossible, but that's harder than shortening the swing, in my opinion. So if you could just shorten it up a little bit, and you see the offensive numbers tick up, so instead of 2 or 3% above average, he's 15% above average, which is still not peak Nolan, but that would make him that much more valuable. And then let's throw out the scenarios. What if Max Muncy goes down with a knee injury in July? Dodgers are going to need a third baseman, and they're not playing. So like there's a scenario where not only does it benefit the player, but if he comes out and plays well, and the Cardinals aren't in it, right? Because if he plays well and they're 2 games out, they're probably going to just keep him. But if he comes back and has a good year and you're still in the mind to trade him, that's probably going to add to it. Because number one, some of the contract's already gone because you've played out whatever number of months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever. And then the other part is he's shown that there is something there. So there is potentially upside where the Cardinals, if it goes that route, could get more for him in that scenario, because you might end up with 2 or 3 teams that are like, damn, we really need this now because we had injuries and we're in trouble. The other side, though, is I think we're underestimating how much they really need to dump the money. Because if it was more about clearing the path, they could just choose to eat more money and he'd be gone already, right? If you went to one of these teams and said, we'll eat half the contract, he'd already be a Boston Red Sox. You know what I'm saying? And the Yankees probably have more interest, and the Mets might have more interest in all of that. So I think it tells us that they're really focused on getting rid of as much of that money as they can. And if they don't get rid of it there, there's no way they're going to be able to avoid doing it somewhere else.
This is the Gashouse gang from KMOX with Kevin Wheeler and Matt Pauley. I'm Tom Ackerman. We're so glad you're with us. Those of you listening to us on KMOX, those of you watching us on replay, some folks catch us live, and it is fun, of course, to see what we, I think, get from our listeners in real time. So you can always comment. We'll pop your comments right up on the screen. And
plus you get fashion tips, right? You can see how we're all dressed, and you can learn from.
I've got the Valley. I'm wearing a Missouri Valley pullover right now.
Looks like Matt's got the hoodie rolling today.
Yeah.
Like we did a poll yesterday. It was yesterday, right? Where we did the poll where do you want the Cardinals to trade Nolan Arenado? It ended up 68% said definitely, and 32% said not at all. And that was somewhere around 500 plus votes. It was a quick poll that we did during the show. Right. 68-32, about what I expected. I think most people do want him to be traded because they understand the direction of the team is to go young and to develop this system and redo it. And Matt, one of the things that we've talked about a lot is the technology that they are going to implement. And I'll throw it to both of you on this. I did talk to John Mozeliak first that after spring training, they're going to take everything down. Everything goes. They're going to redo the clubhouse. They're going to redo the cages. That's going to create some space for other things. And I'm going to imagine that it is going to be a plethora of pitching labs, hitting instruction, performance, all kinds of fun ways to get things going, and then moving that to Busch Stadium.
Yeah, they need to. And I do caution people because I think the infrastructure that we're talking about for the most part isn't going to be utilized until next spring training, not this one coming up, but the next one after, because all that stuff is going to be housed in Jupiter. And this is going to be a long project to get everything in there. It's probably going to take longer than a year. In fact, we could see some interesting things about the next spring training, but to sit here and think that this technology is going to be able to be used right away, I don't think that's the case. I hope that they're able to implement some of it and certainly upgrade some things at Busch Stadium for the upcoming year. But really, the bulk of this project is going to begin after this spring training starts.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, they can still make changes and do things differently with, for example, just with the pitching staff. You don't need a lab to look at what's not working and change it, right? Like you could go to Baseball Savant and you could pull up, for example, I've been harping on this with Miles because we're watching the same movie over and over again for the last 2 years. He's using too many pitches that get hit hard too often. You have to change it up. If it's not working, you've got to start doing something different. His most effective pitch this past season was his sinker, but he doesn't throw it as much as his four-seamer, and his four-seamer's getting hammered. His slider's getting hammered. You can use the information that's readily available to game plan better, to change. If you're having a hard time, Miles has 6 pitches listed on Baseball Savant, 6 pitches. Why does he even throw a changeup when the league slugged 740 against it last year? What's the point of throwing that pitch? And the funny thing is he barely used it the year before. So he can tell you, get rid of this, more of this, try this. This is what I want to see from this team. I want to see it not just be the same movie over and over again with guys that are struggling. If Sonny Gray's going well, we're not changing anything. We're leaving that alone. Right. Andre Palante did a good job last year. We're not changing anything. We're going to leave that alone. But when you have guys that are struggling and things aren't going right, we got to see something. You got to try something else. You can't just keep throwing the same stuff up there that's getting destroyed. And, again, an example with Miles, because look, I know I'm picking on his performance, but when you have like the 4th worst ERA in baseball over 2 full seasons combined, I think it's fair to critique performance. Maybe he needs to throw fewer pitches in the zone. He throws fewer balls than almost anybody in baseball. He doesn't. His walk rate is in the top 2% in baseball. Well, that's fine, but a walk's better than a home run. Sometimes a walk is okay, and maybe you need to pitch away from the center of the zone more because everything you throw is getting hit. So, we need to see that. We need to see adjustments when players aren't having it. When guys are having success, leave them alone, man. Yeah. They're doing fine.
I think Matt, that Miles Michaelis, and again, we've been picking on him, I guess, or he's been, because he's
picking on his performance, because he's a good guy. It's not about that
and all that stuff. But he's a strike thrower. He throws those straight pitches out there and they get whacked. I do think that at times, and he's said this, that he plays kind of a game of chicken. Like he tries to keep the batter guessing and take a little off, move it around, see what you can guess. But it has started to fail him. The art of pitching is beautiful when it works. When it doesn't, man, it is horrendous. And
the art of pitching is keeping the hitter off balance.
Yep.
The art of pitching isn't just throwing it into the box. If they're hitting it, you got to do something different, man.
If you're going to throw it in the box, it's got to have some heat on it. It's got to be upper 90s. And even then, those guys can hit that, Matt.
Yeah, look, the ERA speaks for itself. Over the last couple of years, he's got to get better. He's got to change. One of those two things has to happen. And one of the things that's interesting with Miles is every 4th or 5th or 6th start, he'll have just this fantastic start. And I think that gives him confidence that what he's doing can work. And honestly, he should just take a step back and look at the complete, body of work of what he's doing, because his ERA over the last 2 years is one of the worst ERAs for a starter in Major League Baseball. And the Cardinals he's going to be a Cardinal. I keep harping on this over and over. And
he's going to be in the rotation.
Yeah. He's not going to the bullpen. He's not waiving his no trade clause. All these, we get comments on this on almost every time we talk about him. Put him in the bullpen, go see if you'll get them to accept a trade. He'll go to this team. He'll go to this team. No, he won't. He's going to be a Cardinal, and he's got to get better.
Trade him to the Marlins. Then he could stay in Jupiter for spring training.
And by the way, look at the evidence of making a change, having a positive impact. Look at Palante last year. He realized he had to pitch differently and find a new weapon for right-handed hitters. And when he went down to Memphis, they figured that out and they made those changes and he came back better. And I think that that's something overall, if you're looking at the big picture philosophy, you can need a pitching lab to make some changes, but some changes are just process of elimination. Let's look at what's working and do more of that. Let's look at what's not working and not do that. Looking at the Rays are famous for getting guys with good stuff and just saying, throw the ball down the middle. Because when you throw 97 to 100 and you have great natural movement, you can do that. Well, that's not Miles. Miles' fastball is really straight. And his stuff is not, he's not 97. He's 93, but he's not 97 to 100. So you can't just be the throw it down the middle guy there. And, I think that, and it's not just him. It's going to be other guys too. It's going to also be when it comes to lineup structure and adaptations for hitters as they're going along. more adaptability and more willingness to change rather than being stuck on what you like to do is going to be a big deal this year.
Miles is 36 years old. He'll be 37 in August. I mean, he's been doing it a certain way for a long, long time. Ken, I'm not really sure that I see that. I think he's going to be in the rotation, but I
could see that if he's talking trade deadline, I could see it that late in the year if it's going badly.
The deadline, yes. Yeah. I could see that, yeah. But
especially if they're out of it, you want to get some young guys
I'm not as concerned with Michaelis, even though he is going to be in the rotation, as I am with implementing this technology and strategy for young pitchers. Because, Kevin, you work in youth baseball. I mean, at the highest of levels, but all throughout, these kids that are coming up right now, Quinn Matthews, McGreevy, et cetera, do they not have a familiarity with all of this technology? Like, they want that.
They grew up on
crave it.
Yeah. Modern pitchers, younger pitchers have grown up on it. And I would say that for now, I'm talking about pitchers late 20s and younger, maybe even 30 and younger. You grew up with it. Not everything, because some of the stuff has evolved a lot in the last 5 years. But this started, with Rapsodo and things like that 8, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, even at the youth levels. I'm talking about what I've experienced watching teenagers, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds in essentially a pitching lab doing these things. And there's more than one of those facilities in St. Louis for amateurs, not pros, but for amateurs. So yes, young guys and hitters too. They're all growing up on this. It's the language that they speak.
This is the Gashouse Gang from KMOX with Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler. I'm Tom Ackerman. Matt, just to continue on that path, the excitement, and we talked about this with Kevin and Bernie recently, so I wanted you to chime in. When you look at this rotation, if the Cardinals are, let's say they are going to be successful, the only way that happens is if they pile up pitchers who can eat innings, pile up pitchers who can go in and out of that rotation. I don't see a 5-man rotation right now that can carry them to the promised land. So who do you see? Like, what excites you right now about that rotation and implementing the technology we were just talking about?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about some of these young guys that are coming up. You've mentioned Quinn Matthews. I want to see what's going to happen with Michael McGreevy. I'm very comfortable, though, with the top of the rotation with Sonny Gray and Eric Fetty and Andre Palante. Those two guys, or really those three guys, is your 1, 2, 3. I'm fine with that group, and I think in a different scenario, that group could lead you to a division championship. Now, there's got to be some other things going on. I think one of the interesting things to watch over the next few years is going to be the technology that's being used, the information that's being used, and which of the veteran pitchers want to take that information and which don't. Because I think to Kevin's point, both your points, younger pitchers are going to be all in on all this data and all this information. But I think Sonny Gray's that way. One of the talking points when Sonny got brought in was that he brought to the Cardinals' attention some of the stuff that he's used to having that the organization didn't have. That should have been that should have been like, the 15th red flag that went up, that there were some things that were missing. So he experienced that in other organizations. I know there's been other pitchers who have pitched at other places, have come into St. Louis and have gone, what in the world? Where's this? Where's this? Where's this? I'm used to having all of this technology, all of this data available, and it's not there. So I don't know if I'm really answering your question, Tom, but I think the exciting thing about this is to see, as Chaim Bloom, who has a fantastic track record when it comes to finding pitching, being able to use all information that can be used to allow these guys to become the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, what'll be interesting is, how do you see the difference, right? Because one would be, okay, are they pitching better, right? Are we allowing fewer runs, allowing fewer base runners? I think a couple of things to look for as far as how these things are happening and getting better. You're going to start seeing the Cardinals, instead of going away from some of the pitching trends, lean into it. The Cardinals have never got on the high fastball bandwagon for the most part. With some guys, sure, like Ryan Helsley throws the fastball, elevates it because, of course, he throws 100. But other guys like Brian Wu of the Mariners, his fastball is one of the most effective fastballs in baseball, but he's not throwing 100. He's 94. But he's got carry, it's got ride, so he can pitch at the top of the zone, and it's very effective. Are we going to start seeing more of the breaking ball that matches the fastball, right? So you want the tunneling so people can't tell the difference with the pitch out of the hand. I think you'll be able to see it subtly but it's hard to know right up front, like what that is, unless you're going to dive deep and start looking at like release point charts on Baseball Savant, which by the way, is what we nerdy people will do.
I think Quinn Matthews, Matt, is a candidate for that. Matthews has a
Yeah.
really good fastball, and he's developed a changeup now that really makes it a problem for hitters.
I'm excited. I mean, we saw what we saw from him last year. And, the thing that I think I've mentioned this before, but I'll keep mentioning it over and over because it's a really important thing. He told me last year that he wasn't prepared, that college baseball had not prepared him for a full season of professional ball. And that's why he ran out of gas so much when he got up to AAA in Memphis and really struggled there. So what that tells me is he went into this offseason with a plan to be ready to prepare himself for a full year of professional baseball. He's always been a student athlete, and he's always been somebody who's, he pitched at a very high level academic school collegiately. This has been the first time really that he's been able to go into an offseason with a plan and being able to focus only on baseball and nothing else. So for as much as we're excited about Quinn Matthews, based off what we saw from him last year, I think the work he's doing this offseason is going to be huge, and he could even be better than we were expecting him to be.
You know what? One of the things that led to his breakout last year was added velocity. So, I mean, it's a good sign because I think in college, one of the reasons he wasn't drafted higher than he was that he was kind of sitting 90, 91, 92. Well, last year he was more like 94. And keep in mind that he's listed at 6'5", 188. So he's probably a little heavier than that, which, by the way, I think is what's happening here. When you gain weight and strength and muscle, you gain velocity.
Yes.
So he's probably, if I saw him at winter warm-up, for example, I bet he's 210. And that's a reason why you're seeing 3 extra miles an hour. A lot of the pitching development gurus and the guys at Driveline and stuff, they always like get big, get jacked, throw hard, because the bigger and stronger you are, not like upper body bulk, but like thickness in your legs and in like in your chest and all that. It's not as much about building your biceps. It's much more about leg strength and weight. Weight matters. And when you're 6'5", if he gets up to like 230, he might be a guy that's regularly holding 96. Holy crap, man. I mean, that's why a guy like that's exciting. And that's exactly what Matt's talking about. The ability to focus only on getting better as a pro instead of managing classes and pitching once a week and doing all that. I mean, I'd be willing to bet you he's probably significantly heavier than that 188 by now, and I bet he's going to gain more, and that's going to add more to that ability to not only have velocity, but sustain it.
How about Justin Verlander going to the Giants for 1 year, 15, guys?
It's going to be interesting. When guys get to that age, you always wonder what do they have left in the tank. But Verlander, of everybody, has continued to show that he can continue to go out and give quality starts. It's going to be kind of weird watching him play for that team. But, San Francisco is an interesting team because they're in a division, obviously, with the Dodgers and the Padres. They try to do things. They try to add. They've had kind of, I think, a quiet but good offseason here. And he's somebody that they can add in.
Yeah, I'm really curious about his. It's just going to be about health, I think. You go back to 2022 when he was coming off Tommy John and he went 18-4 with a 1.75 ERA at age 39. It was insane. But last year he had a setback in spring training, which I think was a shoulder, and then he had a neck injury later in the year. He ended up only pitching like half the season. But the big difference, since I'm harping on velocity today, is that his fastball was down 2 miles an hour last year compared to what it was when he was having success. So if he's healthy, do we see that little extra life? And if we do, you're probably going to have a pretty good pitcher.
This is the Gashouse gang from KMOX. We have Matt Pauley. We have Kevin Wheeler. I'm Tom Ackerman. We're so glad you're with us. Baseball moves happening. There was another piece of news that came down this morning, I think got some people's attention. It came from the St. Louis Blues that they have a new minority owner and investor, and her name is Carolyn Kindle. She is the CEO of St. Louis City SC. Now, I don't know how much of it being earth-shattering news. I think maybe the bigger news would be that perhaps, I know that we did, but perhaps there were some people that didn't know that Andy Taylor was an investor in the Blues. And so Andy has a minority ownership stake and was an original member of that group. There, Tom Stillman's not
Tom
the
Stillman's
sole
group, right?
owner. There's a lot of people involved
Yep.
that make up that ownership group. He sold that ownership stake to Carolyn. Carolyn is Andy Taylor's niece. I think, Kevin, what it tells us is the Taylor family is still very much prominent when it comes to our sports and regional success.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably as much a symbolic thing as anything, right? Because as you point out, it stays in the family. But also, I guess it makes sense to a degree, right? To streamline everything, and you add the person who's essentially the shot caller down the street at City to that mix. I'm sure it's going to lead to a little bit more, interaction between the two. What I don't know though is, or what I don't think it changes anything for the Blues. I think it's just more of a solidarity thing, right? It's a little bit more of like, and by the way, it's one of the cool things about what we've seen with the Blues, the Cardinals, and City, all of them being friends and promoting each other and doing all that kind of stuff. I'll be curious to see if there's any notable change in how franchises behave based on this. But I do think it's interesting that it's kept in the family.
I like it. I think it's for all the reasons Kevin mentioned. I like it when there can be more intersection between all the different sports properties that we have in the region. So I think Kevin's right when he talks about the ceremonial aspect to it. It stays within the Taylor family. Obviously, Carolyn Kindle, which she has emerged and with what she has done with City SC to really kind of be the front-facing sports person in that family, I guess you can say. So I like it. It's good. It's fun. I hope it does mean that there's more interaction between the two.
And I'll be a jerk. City needs to learn to play a little nicer. Their first season was perfect, and I think they got a little happy, and now you got a little lesson. And this is nothing to do with this transfer of money or anything like that, but hopefully they're going to be a little bit more, how's the right way to put this? A little more cooperative and a little bit more understanding that first year was amazing, but it ain't just going to stay that way. It's tough. And, look, no franchise knows that more than a hockey franchise because hockey is tough, man. It's a tough business. Your margins are small. You're always up near the cap. It's tough. And I hope that this is a sign that we're going to get a little bit better stuff. And I'm not bagging on anybody. I'm just saying that it felt like that first year, everybody was a little too gung-ho about, whoa, look at this, we're in the big leagues. And then the second year, you get a little reality check. Like, oh, no, it's not going to be that easy. Ideally, we'd like to see more of that spirit of, we're all in this
for
together.
Our audience. What do you mean by cooperative?
I mean, look, just I don't know. I don't. There are stories that I can't tell. Okay. Number one, but also like you're not. No insults. Okay, it's going to sound terrible, but you're not God's gift. Like being in a year one and having, a sold out year and having the most amazing expansion year that we've seen in MLS that I've been aware of is great, but that's not reality. It's like winning the lottery when you're 18 years old. It's not the real world. The real world is it's difficult and it's going to be sometimes a little fuzzy and hard. And there may be times in the future where it's not an automatic sellout and it's not an automatic draw. And you got to understand that.
Well, I will say this. They showed me some urgency by firing their coach in year two. That got my attention. That also tells me that they do want to win, but they really haven't gotten criticized. They don't get.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
They don't get raked over the coals like the Cardinals.
You put it better than I did. Yeah. Right.
I mean, they're still
got to be okay with that. And you got to learn from it.
They've done very well. I mean, they sell the place out. People are talking about them and all that stuff. It's that, year three, if they don't do well and they're near the bottom of the standings, when their own fans start to get upset and they, I don't see that. I know they are.
It's still early
at times, but it's not the casual sports fan doesn't go around and say, "Boy, City sucks." I mean, that nobody would say that. I mean, everybody looks at it as thank you so much for doing this and being here, and eventually. Yeah, that will happen.
The honeymoon ends, right? I mean, I mean, like, look at how Blues fans love the Blues.
Well, let me ask you this.
They love the Blues, but when they're not doing well, they get heat. Look at the Cardinals. Cardinals fans love the Cardinals. The Cardinals get smacked around all the time because expectations are high. When you're new, you're always going to get a little grace, which is
like
great.
The Battlehawks?
Just, kinda.
Battlehawks lost. The Battlehawks choked. I mean, they lost. They had the whole thing set up as a championship in their own dome and lost. Now, if I said that last year, people would be like, oh, come on, man. You can't. It's the Battlehawks. We got to be nice. Look how great. But like, that's how the Rams would have been treated. They would have said, you choked, or the Cardinals choked, or the whatever. But
I think we've gotten to that point though with City, because I think now there's going to be pressure that this coaching hire works. There's going to be pressure that they made all those moves when the transfer window was open last year, knowing that it was going to not really get them to the playoffs last year, but they were setting up for this year. I think it is completely fair and justifiable to scrutinize those moves, whether they work or whether they don't, just the same way we would with the Blues and the Cardinals here moving forward.
Yeah, that's what I mean about being in the big leagues. The big leagues aren't smooth and easy. It's not always just automatic sellouts and everybody loves you and pats you on the back. Being in the big leagues is also going to be taking heat and being okay with that.
This is the Gashouse gang on KMOX. It got my wheels turning on something which is always dangerous, that we should save for another show because we're running out of time. So here's one to tuck away. I want you guys to do some research on this one. Could St. Louis support an NBA team? And what would it take for an ownership group locally or on the outside to assemble and put an NBA team in the Enterprise Center? So think about that for a next program. All right. So on the subject of basketball, as we are just about to depart, let me promote something big tonight, and that is St. Louis University against St. Bonaventure. This is a huge game. SLU wins this game. They're 3-0. There are only a handful of seasons in the last 20 years that I can think of where they started off 2-0 in the A10. It does not happen all that often, and this team is just starting to catch its stride. Matt, you'll be leading into it tonight for the 6:45 pregame. I think you'd agree with me that they're playing some really good basketball right now, and this is a huge game for them against the top team in the league.
Yeah, you got two teams here with perfect records, and we talked all non-conference season, especially once it became pretty clear that the Billikens were not going to accomplish in non-conference what they wanted to accomplish. They had some losses in there that they would have rather have not had, and at that point, there just wasn't really building the resume from non-conference. At that point, the non-conference season just kind of wore on. They got a brand new lease on life the moment A10 play started, and they start off with a road win against Fordham, and they hadn't won a single game away from Chaffetz Arena all season long. They follow that up with another solid win. If they can defend the home court tonight and come away with that win, that's that puts them in really good shape here moving forward. They're going to have to win the A10 tournament to be an NCAA tournament team. There's no sneaking in as an at-large, but this can set them up for some other things here moving forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and again, the A10 regular season is going to be about setting up your seating and getting yourself ready, because Matt's on the money with the I was going to say the quality of losses, but with the lack of quality on some of those losses, your at-large thing is going to be really tough. So you're going to have to go in there and win the A10. But this is the team. This is probably the team you're going to have to beat, right?
It is one of them for sure, and VCU, which actually lost to St. Bonaventure. And then there's some other teams as well. Rhode Island's pretty good. Of course, Dayton is probably the cream of the crop when it's all said and done. But we'll see. SLU is, I think, still a top 5 team in the league, maybe top 4. So it should be a lot of fun to see where it all goes. Tonight, 7 o'clock tip, 6:45 pregame on KMOX. And let me tell you, if you have a chance to go down, they are selling, I just saw this, $5 tickets to sit in the student section. Because remember,
wow. Now, first of all, that's awesome.
The students are not there. I mean, the students are not
they're not back in class yet, right?
Now. So the student section's open. So they're selling $5. I mean, come on. So this place will be potentially rocking tonight. And I think you got a chance to see one of the faces of college basketball on your home floor. Robbie Avila is one of the better players in the country. He really is. He does everything well. Shoots it, passes it, can rebound, can defend. He's a heck of a player. And it's going to be, I think, a great chance to see him up close. I saw someone popped on an IU basketball thought. Only my IU people want to hear about that, but I could do 40 minutes on just that. And by the way, they're pretty good. IU's actually better right now than I thought they were going to be based on how the season started. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Matt, so great to see you doing well.
Thanks.
Hang in there, Pauley. You'll
Good to
be
see you upright.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing great. Thank you to our medical team that is taking care of you. And Kevin, good to see you, pal. You guys be well. We're going to have, let's see, Kevin and Bernie tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we're going to have Matt and Bernie on Friday.
Yep.
And then we'll rock and roll here. Gashouse Gang, and, of course, all of our viewers. Thank you so much to our producer, Drew Young. Our sponsor is Saliga Heating and Cooling, an American Standard heating and cooling dealer. And from Nashville and St. Louis, we say so long.